Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Happy Eclipse Day, wherever you are in the path of totality. My name is Susan Moore. I'm the Community Engagement Manager at IIBA. And today we have Ryland Leyton with us. I'm going to introduce Ryland in just a moment. But first, some housekeeping. We are recording today's session. You will get a link to the recording in 24 hours from now. So you'll get that automatically. Then you'll also get some additional materials, what we call the webinar extras. You'll be getting some of that starting next week. That'll give you more information about this topic. Keep using chat. Let us know, where are you dialing in from? Are you in the path of totality? You can also chat with each other. If you have questions, we are going to take questions throughout our talk today. You can use the Q&A box for that. And then, as always, we've got reactions ready and available for you to use. Ryland and I can see those, so that always helps to let us know how you're feeling about what we're saying. So feel free to use those.
Yes, please.
Let's see. Okay, I think I've covered all of the housekeeping.
Okay.
Ryland Leyton is he's a familiar face around IIBA. He comes and he talks on a variety of topics. Ryland is not only a speaker, an author, a trainer, but he is a practitioner. So all of this that he's talking about is what he is doing on a regular basis. I'm sure he'll tell you a bit more about himself and some of the things that he has going on, because you can have some time with him if you would like to grow in your career. I know he's going to tell you more about that. Let's see, Ryland,
Okay.
is there anything else I need to tell them about
No,
you?
so we're doing that a little differently today. We said we don't want to have to drag anybody away to slides. And yeah, I see people doing this. Just so you know, thank you for using those reactions. Nice thing about the webinar is that is kind of the equivalent of seeing your face in the room, because we don't have the visual feedback from who's in the room. I was in Toronto a couple of weeks ago for BA World, PM World, wonderful conference. Thank goodness I got to go. All of you, please make an effort to go to in-person conferences, whether it's your IIBA Professional Development Day, or if you're joining us from a PMI chapter or something, do those. If there's a BA World, PM World type of thing within driving distance, see if your employer will just give you the time. Find a way to budget the money for yourself. It's really great. So to go back to that and say we don't see people. It's hard to do that. And even if we could, we're now up to almost 300 people on the call. We couldn't possibly see everybody. So we're just going to use those emoji icons, reaction buttons. Please do them. And we said, we're just going to go ahead and do slides like this today. This is going to be the fun part. So I can't always see Susan when I do this, when I hold it
We're
up in
going to
front of
go
my face.
20th century
Let's
with
say
the
clink.
slides today.
So we're just going to do some of this. So this is me. You probably already know about me. I do work at Cognizant's Microsoft Business Group, and apparently my UPS decided to beep in today. So I do work at Cognizant's Microsoft Business Group, and I just need to be clear, I'm speaking on behalf of myself today. These are my opinions. Love me, hate me, or indifferent. Don't call my employer and say, hey, Ryland said, and why are you taking that position? Nobody's taking any position other than Ryland. Okay, I'm also not speaking on behalf of the IIBA or any other thing. These are my opinions. If you want to get on my case, you know how to do it, I'm sure. We have a bunch of stuff out there. So it's not just me. Of course, this is coming to you on behalf of IIBA. So there is a whole bunch of career information out there. We're going to probably put some things in the links into the chat. The Career Center from IIBA, they are very proud of it, and I believe they should be. So take a look at the stuff that they have there. Okay. I also, I believe one of our folks from the chat, from Susan or you or somebody, can put into the chat my website. Part of the reason we're talking today is I've had the opportunity to have 4 different interviews with respectively Angela Wick, who I'm sure you know in the VA space, Laura Brandenburg, also a name I'm sure you know in the VA space, about how to start and grow your VA careers. You should watch those. If you enjoy my conversations, please go to YouTube and watch those. And there's an access on my site. I saw that dropped into the chat just now. So if you go to my website, I have an easy link to it directly. And of course, if you do, please do the usual of like and subscribe, because it lets me know that you're appreciating the content and it's the right thing. And that way you'll know if there's things coming up from it. I'm planning to keep adding to that over the year. And then I did 2 others with managers who I know who are growing and emerging managers, to tell you about our topic today. Like, what What did they get out of becoming a manager? Why did they think it was a good idea? Who helped them get into it? What's the difference between that and the job they did before? And I like those conversations a lot. We're going to boil a lot of this down for you, but if you want to do, let's say, secondary research, which is to say you go look at the primary source and make your own decisions about it, you can do that on YouTube. So that's there, okay? And of course, the IABA career site. There's two things I want to tell you about. One, if you want to keep up on things, okay, I'm no longer using Eventbrite, and I don't get lists of who attends things. So if you want to keep up with me, go to YouTube and follow or connect there. And otherwise, if you want to, go to my website, and here's how you can sign up for the for my email list, which I'm using now and then, but I don't have that many things planned between now and the next 3 months. But the thing I do have planned, and this is the last thing before we get to our topic today, because we are 6 minutes in, we're doing okay, is I wanted to get the word out. I'm doing a coaching thing. This is my thing. If you go to my website and go to services, it's the top thing there. It's the only thing there really you can sign up for right now. And basically this is 6 sessions every other week. We're going to meet as a small group, no more than 10 people. No more than 10 people are going to be in this thing. That's the cap, absolute cap. I want this to have a small group, intimate feel, and we are going to meet and talk about whatever that group needs to talk about. And that could be the topics today. Hey, I'm trying to figure out where I go with my career. How do I position myself? We'll talk about that. That could be, hey, I'm struggling with user stories. What's right and wrong with what I'm doing? And we'll talk about that. It could be, I'm not sure how to manage this difficult stakeholder. And we're going to talk about that. This is literally why I'm doing this, because I'm having a hard time messaging this if it doesn't show. I'm not a good marketer. The point there is, I want to be able to meet people kind of one-on-one and help them, but I can't make that affordable for people in a one-on-one way. So I'm trying a small group and saying, how do we help you do better? Do whatever this thing is you're trying to do, whether it's BA stuff, career stuff, or other stuff, better. So we're doing that. So please take a look, see if that fits for you. Please sign up soon. We're starting on the 16th of April. I'm starting to message out with any sort of a little bit of advanced work is going to come out this week. And if you're interested, take a look. Okay, Susan, let's get into it. Our first topic.
Yeah.
Unless you had a thing. Did you have a thing?
Well, no, what I was going to do was to give people just a little smidge of a background that career development, particularly for business analysis professionals, is kind of your thing. You actually have a book on growing your career. Yeah. I believe it's available from our bookstore, but this is really a passion project for you. Yeah, it's about your career. So this is why we had Ryland come and talk to us today. I guess we could also call you Leyton. That's technically correct.
We could. Let's. It's not that people do it all the time, but you're right. And one of the things we talk about in here, you're right. This was a passion book for me. I've really not done a lot with this, but I'm very proud it exists. And it's available on Kindle too, by the way. So unlike one of my other books. So the long story short of that is, the first part of this is job hunting, like figuring out what you want. Part 2 is job hunting, all the skill, how to have the skills for job hunting, like what it takes. And then the third part is, I like to say, lessons and gifts, which is all the people who helped me learn the things I've learned and who helped me kind of, let's say, grind down the rough edges of being me. And if you didn't know, there were a lot. Okay, there were like a lot. This is a lot. Just a lot.
The good news is, right? Lots of places for you to grow.
So we'll talk maybe about one of those stories in a bit, but thanks, Susan, for reminding me. So this is my opportunity to I'm not kidding when I say the reason I wanted to do the coaching thing is it's my opportunity to pass those along, because in my day job, I rarely actually supervise or coach people. I do that spot to spot on things, but I love getting to do it. So if that's interesting to you, you want to take a chance at it, take a look at that on my site and please sign up. Okay. I want to get into what we've
Let's get
today,
right into it.
Let me creep around the side. This is today, right? Getting into it. All right. So this is probably,
if you are a business analysis professional that's been doing this for a while, or if you've been you are a business analysis professional thinking what your next step is, potentially, if you have talked with your manager or your HR person, one of the options they might have given you is, oh, well, you should become a manager. maybe that's because in the job family within your organization, that's just the next step. So maybe let's start there. And so maybe your question is what is management, and is management right for me? So maybe we first start with what is management when we
So
maybe go big before we talk management
let's
for business analysis.
I loved a thing that you pointed out when we were looking over some of the videos from folks, and I think it's great. And I'm trying to bring together today a little bit of synthesis from those 4 hours plus of videos with people, and of course Susan and I talking. So the first thing to remember is that management, being a manager, is not a reward; it's a role. Okay, it's a formal role, and we all know people who have been great at their job and get into management and then somehow struggle with it, because as we will talk about in a lot of different ways to say, a lot of our topics today interconnect. When you become a manager in an organization, you go back to being a beginner at being at something, because unless you've been a manager before, and I think for our purposes we're talking about an emerging manager, a new manager, right? So you kind of by definition haven't. It's new. Managing people is different than being an individual contributor. And you inherit a ton of responsibility, and you like to think, well, the manager has all the power and the power and authority and all of that. No, they just don't. They just don't. It just doesn't work that way, right? And there are so many things here. But I think the thing, and Susan, we may wind up, I think, kind of interleaving the same points in different ways from different angles. Because we were talking about this ahead, folks, and we said it's not just like the same thing from like the same elephant from different angles. It's like a cut glass chandelier, and you're looking at it from different angles, and so many different things can pop out. You may not even be on the same piece of glass on the same facet of it when you're talking about it, because there's so many interconnected things. So first, when you shift to being a manager, you inherit responsibility for the work everybody does, and the people who do that work need to move to the center of your life. Because if they aren't getting the work done, which is your responsibility to not make them do the work, but in a knowledge space, enable them to do the work, right? You don't make a knowledge worker do something, you enable them to do something. Because kind of by definition, the definition of a knowledge worker, a person who knows more about what they're doing than the person who manages them, because they're in the spot at the point of contact doing it. It's not an assembly line where I just show you what to do, and if I've done that thing a million times, I do it. I keep doing it, and I'm really good at that thing. You may be great at business analysis, but you can't be that person's brain. And really, this thing goes for any field, any knowledge worker field: developer, quality analyst, business analyst, product manager, product owner, project manager, all of those things. As soon as you start managing a field, it's not the same as doing the job yourself. You're enabling other people to do it. I hope that makes a sense. Susan, what would you like to, let me throw that to you for a minute.
Well, when I think about managing, I think about no longer doing that work that you had been doing. So now you said your focus is the people, the skill sets, the competencies that you need to have are around managing people. So it I don't think it's realistic that you will continue to do business analysis work. Usually what they means, and maybe we can talk about the two ways organizations mean by manager, but generally they are talking about a people manager role, which really is a different skill set, and likely they'll provide you with some level of training. If, however, what they're asking you to do is kind of be a leader on a project, so you may or may not have folks formally reporting to you, but you are still expected to do business analysis at a higher level. That I would consider a business analysis leader. So that to me would be the difference in those two things. And potentially, you know, you're
Yeah.
you have a choice. Sometimes you don't. If you want
Great.
to advance it within an organization.
So let's kind of make an assumption here. And folks, icons, reaction buttons help us a little. I'm going to make the following scenario. Let me pretend that you're either a junior or medium level, mid-level professional. Okay, like, which could mean you're anywhere from 5 to 10 years into the field, or you're earlier and just kind of thinking about it, and you're not yet a manager, and you're trying to figure out how do I continue to grow either income or skills or what? Whatever your advancement definition for you, because that's different. Okay. There's two main ways you do this. That you're looking at that as yourself, and you're saying, well, managers obviously make more money. Typically, they do. Not always. Definitely not. I make more than many managers I've worked for. Okay, but there's a reason for that. You can go with the management field, management track, or you can go and become a sort of super senior professional. Okay, not every company has those jobs in it for BAs. Those titles look kind of like this: team lead, which is still a practitioner, but guiding other people on the project. That's kind of what Susan was describing. It's a lead business analyst or a team lead business analyst. Typically, you don't have formal management responsibility for those people. Okay. I have been one of those, and I didn't have formal, but dotted lined. All the BAs in the company kind of dotted line to me is how that worked. And I wrote input for their reviews on the business analysis domain, because none of them reported to a manager who had been a BA. They all reported to delivery managers. So I wrote a summary of their BA skills each time, and the most development managers said, thank you. I can only judge their outcomes. I can't help them with their path. I'm like, good. I'm glad to help with that. Beyond that, staying without the management space is like consulting BA, which sometimes I've seen that job title out there. Not that you are a consultant, but you're inside a company and you're considered a senior, super senior kind of BA that they bring in to advise a team about what they're going to do, what they should do or might do. And then the last most senior non-managing position I've seen is principal business analyst, which is like you own the BA discipline for the company. You may or may not have some people directly reporting to you who are assisting with that in a formal way, but probably not. You probably don't have direct management responsibility for those people, though I've seen it both. So that's like the non-thing. And beyond that, becoming independent or working at a company where, like a consulting company, I'm seeing a note or two just as I keep a glance over at the chat a little. Yes, adding laterally onto your skills, like I'm a BA, but I can also do PM work. I can help organize stuff. I've become very T-shaped or V-shaped in my skill set, is the concept of how you describe those things. That's the non-management thing. But to steal a little fire from ahead, that's the non-management thing. Okay, and I'm going to put a period here somewhere and give this back to you, Susan. There's nothing wrong with wanting to manage. We're going to talk about, please, if you have that desire, if you have a desire to grow and create people from a position of formal management responsibility for them, or director level, or leadership, or whatever, okay, go for it. There's nothing wrong with going for it. I'm just going to tell you, you got to want it, because if you don't want that kind of thing, if you aren't willing to put the people at the center as a manager, don't do it. Just don't. Have we ever had a manager who was happy to drive a bus over us because they couldn't take a problem? They couldn't deal with the fact that something had gone wrong and admit that it was because they gave wrong guidance. So they blame the person. We've all been there. That's an example of a bad leader, bad manager. Don't do that. Don't be that person. If you're not willing to be the manager you wished you had as an employee, don't go and be one. And I think that echoed from all the people I've spoken with when I did my hours of interviews. So I have many more things I could say there. I can ramble for an hour on this, but Susan, I love that we get to talk back and forth. What do you think?
Well, I was going to take a question that's in our Q&A box real quickly.
Sure.
This is from Yuri. Yuri was asking earlier when we were talking about people management, how is it considered people management or enabling people to do when actually it is people in the end who decide themselves whether they will do the thing or not? And to be clear, I think when we're talking about a manager as a people manager, we're talking about the coaching and guidance. It's like the HR stuff. It is all of the activities around helping your team to do their work, remove obstacles. It is probably not at all about being any kind of a business analysis practitioner. Over the course of my career, one, I have never had a manager who has been a BA. Two, they've usually come from project management or IT. I have had one one manager in the relatively recent past who was really focused on being an excellent people manager. Like she really loved that. And it showed in the way that she approached people. And so when I think about if you want to make that leap into management, you will be cultivating it's because you have a different passion and you really want to grow that skill set of helping to manage a team. If you really love business analysis and can't see yourself doing anything but, probably one of these other roles that Ryland has mentioned is for you, and they're out there. Um, they may not be part of a formal job family, so it may be that you have to talk within your organization about how you move into those roles.
And I'll, if it's okay, I'll point out the
Yeah.
thing about the size of the company you're at. The smaller sized companies will embrace people who are willing to straddle roles. Okay. They don't need somebody who's just a PM. They want a PM who project manager, who can also think outside the box and do other things that help organize people. They want the same from an analyst. If you're a BA, and they might say, well, you could take on some project management work here. Or if you say, well, I just like getting in and helping no matter what I'm doing. That's a thing too. And I think we've basically kind of bridged a little bit into our second topic, which is, but I'm not in charge. How do I get things done if I'm not in charge, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And go ahead, Susan. When I
Well,
had
I
this
was
up, I
going to
can't
say,
see.
actually, somebody has just made a comment in our
Mm-hmm.
chat about that. So this is from Tina. I'm in leadership training course preparing to transition to people management. I had the same question about controlling what people do. My training describes leadership as influence. We can't
That's
make
right.
people do things. And
So,
go
no,
for
go
it.
ahead. No, you please finish your thought. I
Well, what I
apologize.
was going to say is I think influence, whether or not you choose to go into management, influence is one of those things that business analysis professionals should have a skill set in. That should just be something that you develop, because even if you aren't formally a manager, very
Mm-hmm.
often you are a leader
Oh,
informally on
absolutely.
projects.
Absolutely, we are. All right. So, granted, I came into I started working Cognizant because the company I worked for was acquired. But one of the things that my leaders who hired me was in a small company. So I was frequently interacting with directors and above because of the nature of the company and very accessible people. And I really enjoyed that. One of the things they made clear to me is, look, during the hiring process, there are three people who run the project. There'll be more on the project, many developers, several other professionals, et cetera. But there are three people who are helping run the project. The project manager, who has kind of overall responsibility because that's just how we do stuff. But they're not, it's inherited. And they also have financial responsibility because they got to keep their eye on the dollars. We have the technical SME, the technical lead, who is responsible for how the solution comes together because we're doing IT consulting. And we have the business analyst, who is, and you'll hear me, responsible for the customer satisfaction with the delivered product. How much responsibility do I have? Giant gobs, huge quantities of. I need at least two buckets to carry the responsibility that I have there, and I'm fine with that. Okay. We have a lot of. I have to operate, however, from a position of influence without authority. I do not have the final say on very much. In a sense, I have it on the requirements, but really, I kind of don't. I have an input on how the solution will come together. And because I've been a developer and been a technologist and things, I have some say there, but I don't have a vote. I like to say I'm a voice, not a vote, right? And at the end of the day, it's about what the customer wants. So I'm still working in that spot I like to work in, which is I like to say, I only win if everyone around me wins. I don't need anything. The customer needs something. I'm not going to build anything. The developers are going to build it. So I only win if I enable that person to communicate and resolve what they really want with the person who's going to deliver what they really want and make sure they get it and set the right expectations so that they do so. So I am operating from influence without authority tremendously. I'm also operating from leadership without authority tremendously because I don't have direct leadership. I don't, I am looked to provide things, and I appreciate the privilege that position is, right? I respect that I've been granted that and that job, but I don't have authority in it exactly, right? So kind of coming back to Tina's point and your point, one of the things I loved surfacing in a conversation. I'm forgetting which person, I think it might have been Chad on the videos, was one reason you have to function successfully from a influence or leadership without authority position for a long time before you're given a management position in a company is, let's all think about this for a minute. If you can't exercise influence or leadership without authority, should you be given the authority in the first place? Does that make sense? Give me reaction buttons if that makes sense. If you would agree with that as like, maybe you shouldn't be, if you can't do it without the authority, should you be given the authority? Okay, I see a wealth of those things.
Thumbs up.
Which is great. By the way, thank you, folks. That helps. And I am going to prompt for that at times because I want to see if we're in track. We riffed in the conversation I was having was like, and I this is one of those rough edges I think I had worn off before I knew it had worn off of me. If have we all worked for a boss where or a manager or somebody where I'm going to paint the negative scenario where you've asked a couple of things, but immediately, quickly in the conversation, they come to, because I'm the boss, that's why. Stop asking. That's the negative scenario. Now, if you've asked a million times and you don't like the answer and they're giving you an answer and it's a good faith thing, I have seen managers, and I do not disparage them for this, like, look, I've literally explained this 6 times to you. I've met with you in person for a half hour to try and explain it to you. I'm sorry you don't like it, agree with it, or understand it. Do it anyway. I've done everything I can do. Do it anyway. That's not a bad use of falling back to authority. But if they do it like in the first 2 seconds, and there's nothing special about this conversation, then something's wrong. Okay? That's how I see that. Because we hate the manager that says, do it because I said so. There should be a good reason. And I think that's a reasonable thing. And that's on the management side. If you go up the track I was describing of senior, team lead, principal, consulting, whatever that is, you have to be able to work this angle of things because you won't probably have formal authority at all. And from our position, it's necessary. It is necessary to work that. I think it's the mark of a senior skill. And I'm going to borrow a last thing I'm going to say, then I'll turn it back to you, Susan, because I tend to do this. I'm going to borrow a thing Angela and I think, talked about, which was, we talk about BA soft skills and hard skills, right? Your hard skills are great, but these hard skills are either, there's 2 things about them when you combine them with the soft skills. These hard skills can only reach as far as your soft skills will allow because you're influencing people with your soft skills, right? You're creating knowledge with your hard skills, a model or whatever else, and you're using your soft skills to get the reach out, to magnify the effect of them, right? By creating models, by creating pictures, by creating whatever idea, by distilling the complex to the simple, you can do that. But if you can't communicate it with your soft skills or get people to listen to you, who cares that you did it in the first place? It's irrelevant. So your soft skills enable and empower and magnify your hard skills. You have to have both to advance in either of these ways. So if anybody says to you, hey, I need you to work on your approach, listen to them. They are trying to help you. Okay. So I'll stop there. And Susan, I appreciate you letting me riff so strongly on this, but let me hand it back to you and then we can keep going. I'm thinking our pace is good. And that way we'll be able to handle a few questions directly.
And there's also some good conversation that's going on in the chat. So I'm sort of borrowing from that as well as in the Q&A. And one of the themes that I see, or at least it's a theme that I'm interpreting, is influence over maybe other ways of getting people to do things. Let me just say that influence is not necessarily making people do the thing you want them to do. That's not influence. That could be manipulation.
Yeah.
that could be
I agree.
That could be Jedi mind tricks, but that would not fall under influence.
They're not the requirements you're looking for.
Exactly. So influence, I think, it really is a more subtle art form where you are working closely with others. Trust is a big component of influence. And so there's work that you can do. There's actually an equation, and I know, Ryland, you and I have touched on the trusted advisor a number of times where in that book, which is available to IIBA members in our library, there's actually an equation that you can use in order to like to work through how you build trust with people. So that's an important skill. I would say that as you are seeing more evidence of your ability to genuinely, yep, there you go. That's the trust equation.
I'm going to hope we can elaborate that a little, but there's the idea, folks. We'll talk about
Yeah,
it for a minute.
it's good that you have that right on your desk.
Yeah,
That's
well,
good
you
stuff.
reminded me it was on back there, and that's, by the way, used with permission from TRS.
Yeah. Um, so, as you're seeing yourself build that skill set, I think you could be, because it is very much something that you sometimes have to do as a manager as well, quite honestly. So getting back to that how do you make people do stuff? Sometimes you're right, we can't make people do stuff. It is that influence. So if you are someone who wants to grow in their career and you're thinking, not really interested in managing people, not really interested in kind of using this influence that you're talking about, management's
Let's
not really going to be a suitable path, I think.
let's yeah. I mean, either way, let's talk about this for just a second, if I can. I was scanning the chat a little bit and so forth. Um, well, maybe we'll do what the trust equation is in over time. I saw a chat or two. So that's my book. The trustedadvisor.com, I think, is the website. So take a look there for the trusted advisor. What's influence? What are we talking about when we say you have to use influence without authority? My developers are saying, no, we have to do the database first. And I'm saying, what if we took a more agile approach? Here's the benefit I think it would have. Maybe I don't have the authority to compel them to do that. And even if I do, maybe it's not the right thing to do, right? Maybe I have to establish that trust with the team and say, all right, try it your way. And the only thing is, I'm not going to agree with you. I'm not going to fight you on it. However, if we don't have customers agreeing that they are happy with the deliverables within 4 weeks, we change our track. Can we agree about that? Will you agree with me there? That's a form of influence. Okay. But if I have a lot of trust established with them, they might say, well, you have done this a few times. I'm not familiar with doing it that way, but I agree. Let's give it a shot. And maybe the same for the client. I've had more than one client that said, I don't like this. I need to see the whole thing. And I explained them benefits of agility and why. And they've said both things. I don't want to do that. I'm uncomfortable. I don't know that I could show it to leadership. And other times they've said, I think that makes more sense. I'm a little scared, but let's try it. Right? That's trust. That's influence without authority. I don't have the authority to do anything there other than use my behavior to influence others for, and let me emphasize this, the benefit of the overall work effort. Whatever it is I am there to do with them or for them or on their behalf that we're contracted to do or that we're doing in the project. And that's no different if you're inside a company, right? I'm not manipulating them. I'm trying to help them get the best thing that I could see to help them get. And if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But I'm there because I'm trying to be right. And hopefully I'm the right person in the right place. Or I retain their trust by doing things by saying, I am not certain. Here is about how certain I feel. So I'm proposing this with about this level of confidence because this situation is a little weird. How about, what do you all think? And then at least we're doing something together that is still influence. We're maintaining and building trust. I'm not sure I would say influence is all about trust, but it's a lot of things. It's a lot of different things. And it's how much do you have the ability to help someone for their own benefit or the benefit of the overall group thing, right? And that's a whole other, I think we've got a video out there on consultative mindset, and please go watch that on the IIBA site. You might enjoy that. It comes back to that a lot, right?
Exactly.
How do you think as a consultant?
A good reminder that was a good one. Also, because I know that we had someone put in the trust equation. I have actually that is not quite correct. So I have put the trust equation into the chat. So trustworthiness equals credibility plus reliability plus intimacy, which seems like a weird word, but it just means that you're able to have sensitive conversations, make people feel safe, all over self-orientation, which is where things can go wrong. If people feel like you are credible, reliable, and intimate, and you are doing that for the broader good, check, you're trustworthy. If they feel like you are doing that to serve yourself, then they feel like you cannot be trusted. So that's why it's really important. And you make a good point. Influence is more than just trust. But trust actually, I think, pervades really all of these things. And, we don't often, as business analysis professionals, we talk often about um, building our technical skills, our hard skills, learning a tool, learning a technique, getting a certification. Your point about the soft skills at some point amplifying the hard skills, one of the ways that you could consider growing yourself is to work more on those soft skills. There's probably not going to be a boot camp for some of these things.
There's
The way
not.
that you learn them is you have to do them, and work with people like Ryland or others who can give you feedback on that experience. Sometimes you have to do it wrong and reflect and try again. But that's what makes those soft skills or not optional skills, but essential skills. That's what makes them difficult. Um, and the reason I don't like the term soft skills is because it makes it sound optional, easy.
Right.
And those skills are not. They are not any of those
They're
things.
mandatory.
Yes,
You can't.
they are
Okay.
mandatory, and they are particularly mandatory when you go into management because you are dealing more so with people as opposed to the other work that you might have done as a business analyst. So,
So, something came in and out of my brain there, but I think we're bridging well to our next thing, which
perfect.
is this one.
Being
Okay.
a manager is almost the opposite of being in charge. Do tell.
I saw this in somebody's in the chat also, so I'm going to put this up there, and I'm going to have to turn this around so I can read the quote and get it right. But you see the quote right there, okay? Right, a lyric that came into my mind. I'm not going to sing at you because nobody wants that. Let's just thought I will accept tips to not sing. Okay. Um, but it's the opposite, right? If you think about being a mid-level or first-level manager, right? How much power do you have? How much in charge are you? Everything you are told to achieve as an outcome comes from above. Very little is ever going to be your own idea. And everything you have to get it done through are all the people around you who are independent actors. You have no power to compel their behavior, right? You can only hope that you can encourage them and do things better. So, clowns to the left of me, jokers in the right. Here I am stuck in the middle with you. I'm like, it's not that anyone's a clown or a joker, but I like the image, right? Because, I mean, if you think, okay, you're thinking about being a manager and you think the leadership at your company is crazy for the things they're asking you, and those people in the management are moving one step closer than you to that, appreciate them. Thank them for shielding and sheltering you from the crazy. Because it probably isn't crazy, but it's a totally different thing than you need to think of for your own work. And just so I'm clear about that, Angela and I talked about this at one point also, I think. Like if you're a BA, one of the senior things about a BA is dealing with ambiguity and understanding who your stakeholders are, being a senior professional. If you have a complex project, let's pretend like I had one time, it's a call center type of work. We're updating or improving the things call representatives are going to use on their phone in their system with, to be the next generation or something. And you have some of those stakeholders on the call, on the thing with you. And you also have leadership who's telling you the whole point of the project. Leadership is saying increase revenue, drive more throughput, increase customer satisfaction. And the call center person is saying something like, well, I need to be able to get to certain things easier and faster. That's the point of this project, right? Those don't connect unless you understand that this is the why and the what and the how is coming from the person at the ground level with you. How will they increase throughput? By being able to increase, get to information faster, by being able to do certain processes faster. But a junior BA, when asked what is the point of the project, will not make the connection between the senior and the junior people. They won't. Also, look at the opportunity for influence, that authority here. Someone in between that senior and that junior person says, well, I want my pet feature in here. If you operate from influence, that authority well, you'll be able to say, well, that doesn't help this person achieve that goal. Are we sure that should be a high in the priority backlog? And you either help them show why it should be, or you help them understand why it can't be without alienating them. Remember your stakeholder matrix? If this person has a lot of influence on the project and their pet thing won't be in, you need to handle them gracefully. in a not a negative way and just show them, okay, here's where we could potentially get to your thing if we could change these other things around or whatever, or it has to be next time. And I hope you understand why, you know, if, you know, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want to go on from there. I'm just pointing out, doesn't that sound like you don't have a whole lot of authority? Okay. Like you have to work with what everyone else needs instead of you. Can I get any kind of reaction if I'm making sense? I saw a few, but I'm wondering. Okay. All right. Susan, did you want to, I'm being conscious of time. I think I know I want to keep the last maybe 10, 15 minutes for things. We have two more things. I think I'd do them together, but did you have anything we want to do before we go to that?
No, I don't. These, I think that you're making good points because,
Okay.
yeah.
Right. Then I'll let you focus. I'll tell you what, I'm going to do these last 2 points. I'm going to let you focus and see what questions you think we should surface during our time live. And then, as everybody knows, sometimes Susan and I are able to get together later. It'll be after the eclipse because I got to deal with that. I got to deal with that. I have to go manage an eclipse. It's happening whether I'm involved or not, right? So I get to go experience and participate in this eclipse, whether I have influence or not. It's going to do what it's going to do, right? But I get that starts about 20 minutes after we hang up if we end on time. So I'm not in a rush to hang up on time, but I can't meet her after right away, which we usually do to deal with any of the things we think are really critical and poignant that we should. So I'm going to go through these two things quickly, since we've had that minute. Step up jobs. Okay, people say this is a question that comes up. Okay, and the truth is, yes, you will sometimes have, if you're like, well, wait a minute, I've taken on more responsibility. Shouldn't I get a raise or a different title or whatever? Be grateful you haven't gotten it yet. Usually when you get this, you are giving the opportunity to fail gracefully. Okay. It's the thing, if you listen to my interview with Chad and Angela, and I'm pretty sure Laura will have said something similar, and other people will have, it's that overall concept of you're being given the job internally as a tryout. So if you're in a job with a title, you are the acting so-and-so, or you are serving as project manager on this thing, but you have a mentor for it because you haven't managed a project before, whatever. And that's of course junior in your career, typically by BA. BAs usually get a little of that by the time they're in their 5th year. You get a little bit of PM experience, it just comes to you. The point is, I do have one. It's an opportunity, okay? You're being given that chance to do this in a successful live fire exercise, as it were, to succeed, to where it really matters. Because if, I don't know about all of you, but until I have to use a skill or learn an actual skill for some project or something, it's all academic. It's interesting, but I haven't had to use it, okay? And that's where I'm saying this happens to people. And in the comments, I'm seeing a few yes. Chad was pointing out in his thing, to use the call, he was told, I have to hire somebody to do this management job above you, but I think you might be good at it. Would you like to try? Fantastic management skill for the person who did that to him, by the way, right? Let's all respect and appreciate that person, because they said to him, I know you don't love how that job's been done. They said something like, this is going to have to happen. I think you might be good at it, but if not, you have to understand you'll have to take direction from the person I hired. Which would you like? What a great opportunity to have. And he took it, and it's become a great growth opportunity for him. And of course, he'd shown some interest and skill potentially in that direction. So it's not a punishment. And I'm just going to flat out contrast this with, if you are hired into that step up job and you don't succeed at it, and you're a brand new employee in it at a new company and you have the thing and you don't succeed, well, you were hired in because you had this skill. Now you are probably just being let go, or you're being rated low, or some kind of negative performance plan or something, as opposed to a growth plan. I'm not against personal improvement programs and stuff like that. And we're going to do one in my coaching thing, by the way, but it's going to be your thing. But we all know they can be used negatively in the sense they can be a result of you not performing well, as opposed to how do I grow you into your next step? We're going to do it in the class in the growth way, of course. The point is, you're not in that position. You're not in that place where you're going to get shot down because they thought you could and you can't, and we need that job. And it's within 90 days, so it's been fun. Thank you for participating. We'll mark you as eligible for rehire, but you can't have this job right now. All right. Last thing, and then I want to do questions. So again, Susan, jump in and interrupt me anytime, because I'm that guy. So I'm going to peek around the corner of this. Okay? All right. Yep. We need good managers. If you think you're up for it, go do it. Okay? Everybody here has benefited, I hope, from having had a good manager. And when you have, I hope it has stood out as a contrast to what you didn't get before, not in a negative way, but once you see it. We probably all, as BAs, if you're a senior BA, hopefully you've had that experience. I had no idea this is what BA documents should be. Well, now you've received some good ones. Now you know what to look for, right? Now you're an educated consumer of business analysis services. You know what good looks like, and now you will, I'm sorry, be dissatisfied with the generic BA you get in the future. So ask for me by name is what you can say to them, which is like, brand name business analysis was my tagline for a while. So my point is, if you want that, just remember, you're going to have to go back to being a beginner at some stuff, like I said, right? Because unless you already have management skills, or you've been lucky to have some kernels of that planted and seeds of that planted, you're going to have to start over at something where you're going to have to be rushing around for a while. And you have to embrace the ability to become a beginner. It's not easy, especially for advanced professionals. We don't like going backwards and feeling awkward, new, unskilled. We've got all this credibility and career weight and whatever we have with us. And now we have to do something brand new that's not really a direct line from the things we already do. It's managing, which is a different line. And we have to say, all right, I'm a beginner at this again. I'm going to have to ask people whether I'm going to ask for feedback. I'm going to get mentoring. I'm going to get guidance. I'm going to think of what I need to do. I'm going to try to get some of that not from my direct manager, because I might want to be really vulnerable with somebody and say, I am completely freaking lost. And maybe I don't want to say that to my boss. Maybe I don't need them to see that volcano of terror that is boiling inside of me. Okay. That's why we have other colleagues in the world, because there's appropriate vulnerability and then there's dumping. Okay.
Well,
and I've had to learn that difference as well. So that's the difference.
Part of the struggle that we feel when we are in any kind of a new position is also part of the growth process. When you've got to learn new things, just the kind of the cognitive psychology is that we're getting new information that our brain doesn't know how to catalog and connect. So it takes us a little bit longer to do things. That struggle is part of the way that you know that you are growing and learning. So you have to be comfortable. Just like we say that the more senior you go in this role, you've got to be comfortable with like abstractness and ambiguity. You also, if you're moving into this like a management role that you have not done, you've got to be comfortable for the fact that with the fact that you're going to struggle. You're not going to know what you're doing. You need to roll with it. It's actually it's going to be good for you in the long run.
I put a note in the chat, a book I read that has influenced me for probably 25 or 30 years is Way of the Peaceful Warrior by Dan Millman. And it's nothing you think of from the title. But one of the things he points out in it is people are absolutely furious at themselves when they don't master a new skill quickly. We do not get mad at a toddler for learning to walk and failing at it multiple times. We expect it. And yet we, when doing something completely new for ourselves later in life, absolutely give ourselves zero slack. Why am I not able to execute this perfect yoga pose quickly? I see everybody do it. It looks so easy. That looking easy took 10 years for that person to master. Maybe you didn't see the 10 years, right? Speaking to you today, this is really comfortable for me and easy, but I could tell you the 3 times I was absolutely terrified to do this before I figured out how I could do this 15 years ago when I started doing anything like this. And if you told me 20 or 30 years ago that I'd be up here doing stuff like this with audiences and enjoying it and not terrified of it, I would have told you were insane. What are you doing in my house? That kind of thing. Who are you and why are you here? But so I'm saying cut yourself some slack. That's it. So I'm going to stop there till Susan, hand this back to you. I see a lot of agreement in there, so I won't beat the agreement horse, as it were. It's already doing its job. What shall we talk about?
All right, let's take a couple of questions. We've got several. So just a reminder, we've got the upvoting turned on. So if you see a question in there that you also have, give it an upvote. I will take them in that order. You can also just add your question.
I see a few people with hands raised. I'm just going to ask them if you have, if you've already just check if your hand is up, because you still need to come out there, or if something in the Q&A is already covering what you want. Okay. And,
yeah. All
Go
right.
ahead. Susan, what shall we
So
go with?
first question is from Harshita. Can you be both management and can you do both business analysis and
Yeah.
management at the same time?
So, I mean, yes, the answer is yes. Just remember, you still only have so much time and capacity and energy, mental energy, physical energy. I know in talking to a few people at the conference and, doing literal hand raising exercises in rooms to see what people thought about. And I have to tell you, soft skills were a top. I got to go back to soft skills for a minute there later on. But the short version is, yeah, some people had formal management responsibility for a small group of people, and they also had responsibility for a project or two. It depend in their case, like they were sort of 30 hours of actual project work and 10 hours of management. And I'm hoping they had like 3 people they managed, because if that's my belief. They didn't give me any numbers or specs. They just said I am a manager and I have full responsibility for a project as a BA. Like, okay, I assume it worked like the hours I said, but maybe not. That's fine if that's what you want. Not every company has that. And if you go above 5 BAs at the most, I mean, like maybe 3, there's a certain point at which you have to be a full-time manager, or you're just going to do, I hope you like 60 or 80 hour weeks if you're actually putting your people at the middle of your work.
Yeah. I was a supervisor for a while of a team of 10 analysts and did have some business analysis leadership. And it was almost impossible. I really just kind of put out fires is what I ended up doing on the BA side. So it ended up being a very sliver of work. So I think that you can do them, but you just have to figure out what that right balance is. So thank you, Harshita. That was a good question. Terry has the next question. I was a senior BA at my company who transitioned to a team lead role. It's a small team, so expectation is I am still doing some of the BA work. It's been difficult to
Mm-hmm.
coach my team without feeling like I am micromanaging. Yes, tips on how to cross-check so I know whether I'm truly helping versus overstepping.
Okay. Terry, if by chance you can give an idea of how many people are on that team, I would love to know. It just might help me a little bit with this if you type that in the chat.
3.
So 3, awesome.
Yep.
Okay, so not a huge amount. So 1, I'm hoping you've developed a lot of trust with your team. Okay. If not, consider what in the trust equation you could work towards and how you do that and so on. And unfortunately, it will simply take time because trust does not change rapid. Trust takes time to build and can be destroyed quickly. This is the nature of things.
Yep.
So I guess I'm just looking at this and saying, I mean, look at it if you could do a quick thing that's anonymous, okay? Like ask people how comfortable they are. Like, am I micromanaging? Maybe use something there's so many different ways to do it. If you don't know, email me or something. But like, am I micromanaging? Or am I giving you too little, too much, or just right level of instruction most of the time, like guidance and instruction? And let them put the notes, like post-it notes in a stack that you don't see, and then you just get all 3 at the end. Okay. If they had one suggestion for you in terms of leading them as a team, because I'm assuming you're an emerging manager here, if I'm reading that right. You just transitioned to this. I'm going to pretend you're new at this and have never done it before. I don't know if that's true. What is the one thing you wish I would do differently, and one thing you wish you are so glad I do, and please don't stop? And just try to get that feedback from them honestly. If you find out everybody thinks you're micromanaging, hopefully the other comments will tell you what you could do about that, or you could change to a coaching stance. You might, I don't remember the book title or anything, but there's like the 7 stances of coaching. You might Google for that. There might be a thing about it. But there's things in coaching where you are either adopting a listening stance, an advising stance, a challenging stance. There are several others, but it's good to, in the same way the BA Bach gave us a language to talk about business analysis, this seven stances, or whatever the number correctly is, of coaching, you could look at those and say, which of these things do I need to do now so that I know that I am doing them? One of my colleagues and mentors, Bob Galen, likes to point out any interaction for a coaching session or management session, in this case, like a one-on-one or even a group, you can walk in with like, you have an idea of what my opening is, what the middle is, and what the end of this conversation is going to be, based on if you're walking in to achieve a goal or if you're just receiving information. Like it's the one-on-one. I like one-on-ones when I have them, where if I have a thing I have to communicate, I give it and I'm done. But the time is the employees or the supervisees. It is their time. What do you need from this? This is your time. And then I stop and hands on desk and I look for, and I just listen. Adopt solar, right? Seated, open, eye contact, listening, relaxed, mouth closed.
Yeah.
I'm listening. Those things. So I'm just saying that. That's how I would approach that without killing the point further.
I was just going to add to a certain extent, you are still kind of a peer. In the times when I've been a team lead, I have also still kind of been in a peer position. So I needed to remember that we all were successful on this project based on everyone's efforts. And so I just tried to make sure, even if we had to have hard conversations, to leave that judgment at the door, and be ready for whatever they might have for me. So Terry, thanks for that great question. Aaron is giving us our next question, which is also really good. How can you influence your company to have both a management track and an individual contributor path for BA careers? And Ryland, you and I talked about the maybe bummer of a situation we sometimes find ourselves in with BA job families. Yeah.
Yes. So this is a valid thing. And I have not, frankly, I don't see a lot of companies do it. Okay. I just don't. Or it's such a narrow tower, let's say, of jobs. Like I said, a company doesn't really need more than one principal business analyst unless it's several 100,000. Okay. People. It's just not the way that needs to work. But there should be many other senior level positions. How do you influence them to do it? So I'm going to give you what I can think of, but I cannot tell you this is, again, what I said at the beginning, no warranties express or implied kind of stuff. Try to make the value proposition. Try to show them the fear I would have in this thing in a negative way. I mean, like the thing that I think is the negative case for not having one, the reason you should have one is look at the experience that leaves your company. How valuable is the BA that has been around for 10 to 15 years at X company in whatever roles, whatever job capacities, and they leave because there's nowhere for them to go up in income, whatever your thing is, income or responsibility or whatever it is. Make the case, make the case, ask them how they could agile this maybe. Like what would cause us to, what experiment could we run as a group that would cause you to authorize a job like this? And maybe be headcount friendly. Say, I acknowledge this is not adding a headcount. This is shifting a headcount. It will improve the ability of others to do this if we create a principal or senior or something type of, super, whatever the job title needs to be. And I would propose that discussion. I would also point out this is a great point to be showing influence that authority because you're asking for people with authority to use it on your behalf for the thing you wish, which is what would make a difference to you about this? Treat it like it's a, make a problem statement, consult senior stakeholders to say what they think about it or what would convince them of this. What would get you to say yes to this, to helping with this, to lending your influence, since I don't have any, lending your influence, which has authority, to asking HR or authorizing this or whatever. See what you can do with that. I think that's basically the path. And I would riff on that further, but I'm being sensitive to time. So beyond that, it's brainstorming. Please, you could ping me directly. And maybe, Susan, that might be a great conversation for us to get concrete with in a post.
Yeah.
We can book.
And I like that because we didn't talk about allies and allyship today, but that's, I think, what you're talking about. And I've got a great story for a different day about how an ally actually lobbied for a business architecture role in our organization.
Okay. So a thing I'm working on with the coaching thing, and it's been a great experience for me to get to do this, is I'm saying, given the things you want to work on or the problems and things you identify, and this is for everybody to think about, who are your critics on this? If this is a point of thing you're trying to improve, who are your critics that have said it? Who are your allies that will help you get better at it? If you're just trying to get a new promotion or a new advance in something, who are the allies who are supporting you in this, who would advocate for you? What is your proof? What is the feedback you've had that makes you think about this? What is your action plan? And so allies and critics, I want to turn that into positives. I want to turn that into, these are people who are giving you feedback about you in the universe. You can use this, in a positive sense. So I want to recast those concepts in the sense of, well, they don't like me, they're a critic. Well, what opportunity is being offered with their criticism in this, whether it's to them or not, it's to you.
Yeah.
So, thanks.
So we are at the end of our time. We have more questions. You and I can get together later and schedule, because I think these are some really good questions, and actually we have some in the chat too. So maybe we can figure out how to get those answered. just as a reminder, I know, did you want to talk about your coaching thing one last time?
No, I think I've covered the
Okay.
idea there. People know about it. Please look at the website. Sign up if you want to. We're starting soon. Actually, what I was going to suggest is this. Tell me if this is okay with you. Maybe we put a feedback form, or I know there's usually one, but let's do a little extension to it in the post email that goes out to folks and say, what of today would you want to hear about more?
Okay.
Because Susan and I had a ton to talk about today. We knew
Literally a ton.
all of it. But y'all were here, you invested, and we'll do the same with that. But Susan, maybe could I ask you to maybe let's pick either we could pick them or we could do it free form, but let's ask folks, where did you want us to explore more that we didn't get to today?
Yeah.
Because we got a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can create a questionnaire that will go out in that email. So I'll work
That
with
would be cool.
Jenny on that too. All right.
I appreciate that. It
Well,
had that feeling there's so much here. People are so invested, and I'm just grateful that they came today. And I feel like we should figure out what part two of this looks like, maybe.
this is the hard part of how we grow in our careers is where do we go next? And so I think, any of the resources that you provided today, I think can be helpful and potentially we can do more. So I want to thank everybody for joining us. Happy Eclipse Day. Y'all get out there and
Yep.
when we meet again, we'll have to get some chats going about what everybody experienced. Thank you so much,
Yeah.
Ryland. Thanks, everybody.
Take care, everyone. It's a
Take
pleasure.
care. Bye-bye.